You ever have one of those moments where the world just stops, where everything you've been holding inside boils over, and you know right then and there you're done playing nice? That's where I was, brush in hand, halfway through painting my cabin's wall, when I heard my boy, Tommy, scream. I turned just in time to see Susan Miller, that HOA queen with her perfect nails and her smug little clipboard, shove him off the ladder like he was nothing, his body hitting the dirt, paint splattering everywhere, and a thin line of blood trickling from his elbow. Then she laughed, a sharp, ugly sound that cut deeper than any knife. I didn't yell, didn't charge at her like some wild animal. I just stood there, gripping that paint roller so hard my knuckles went white, staring at this woman who thought she could push my kid around and walk away smiling. This wasn't just about paint. Not Anna Maria. It was about everything I'd fought for, everything I'd promised my Sarah before the cancer took her, before her whispered dream of a little green cabin by Willow Lake became the only thing keeping me going. That cabin, those walls, that exact shade of forest green. It was her. It was us. And now Susan Miller was trying to erase it all with her rules and her power trips. I walked to the shed, slow, deliberate, my boots crunching on the gravel, and I knew she just lit a match she couldn't put out. Let me back up, because you need to know why this mattered, why that cabin wasn't just wood and nails. Sarah used to sit on our old couch, flipping through travel magazines, her eyes lighting up at this one picture, a cozy green cabin by a lake, surrounded by pines, the kind of place where you could hear the water lapping at the shore and feel like the world couldn't touch you. That's where we'll grow old, Jack, she'd say, her voice soft but sure, even as the chemo drained her. She didn't make it to that lake. Cancer doesn't care about dreams, but I promised her I'd build it. For her, for Tommy, for the life we were supposed to have. 3 years, 2 jobs, every dime I had. And I finally did eat a lakefront lot on Willow Lake. A cabin with creaky floors, but a heart as strong as hers. That morning, Tommy and I were out there, painting it her color, forest green, the kind of green that felt like her laugh, her calm, her everything. Tommy looked up at me, paint smudged on his cheek, and asked, "Why this color, Dad?" "It's kinda weird." I steadied the ladder, smiling. "It's your mom's color, kid, same as the pine she loved, same as the hope she carried." He didn't say much, just nodded and kept rolling that paint, like he was pouring her memory into every stroke. It was perfect for a moment until Susan showed up, her heels clicking like a countdown to trouble, her voice slicing through the quiet like a chainsaw. "That color," she snapped, waving her clipboard, "is not on the Pineview Estate's approved palette." "Stop now." I turned, slow, trying to keep my cool. "It's just paint, Susan. It's my house, my land." She stepped closer, her eyes cold as lake ice. "Your house, maybe, but my rules. Sagebrush, cedar gray, muted beige, those are acceptable. Forest green? That's a violation of community standards." I could feel Tommy tense up on the ladder, his brush frozen mid-stroke. "Keep going, bud," I told him, not breaking eye contact with her. "Don't let her nonsense erase your mom." Susan's face twisted, like I'd slapped her with words. "This isn't personal," she hissed, loud enough for the neighbors craning their necks from their porches to hear. "I've spent 10 years building this community's aesthetic, and I won't let your little grief project ruin it." Then she marched right up to Tommy, yanked the roller from his hand, and shoved him, hard, her manicured nails digging into his shoulder. He yelped, slipped, and hit the ground, the wind knocked out of him, paint cans clattering around him. My blood roared, but I didn't touch her, not yet. I grabbed the ladder to steady it, my voice low, dangerous. "Touch my kid again, Susan, and you'll regret it." She had the gall to look offended. "A threat? You'll be hearing from the HO of fines, citations, maybe a forced repaint." I stepped between her and Tommy. "Try it. But if you push, I push back harder." She stormed off, her clipboard clutched like a shield, tossing one last barb over her shoulder. "Rule breakers don't last here, Jack. You're on my radar now." Tommy, still on the ground, whispered, "Who is she, Dad?" I watched her disappear down the path, my fists tight. "She's the reason we're about to fight a war, kid." I thought that was the end of it, thought she'd slink back to her McMansion and stew. I was wrong. Susan didn't retreat, she doubled down. 2 minutes later, she was back, no clipboard this time, just a laminated binder labeled Pineview Estate Standards, swinging it like a weapon. I told you to stop, she snarled. I climbed down, done with her games. And I told you there's no rule against honoring my wife. That's when she lost it, her eyes wild, her voice a shriek. She spun and slapped Tommy's shoulder, hard, knocking him off the ladder again. He hit the dirt, gasping, and something in me snapped, not loud, not wild, just cold, clear, and final. I moved before I could think, grabbing the pressure washer we'd used to clean the siding days before. One more time, Susan, I said, voice like gravel, and you'll learn what consequences feel like. She laughed, actually laughed, until I cranked the washer to max and let loose. The jet hit her square in the chest, soaking her pristine blouse, her skirt, her perfectly styled hair. She screamed, stumbled back, and tripped into a stack of paint cans, forest green splashing across her legs, her bag, her dignity. Tommy sat up, coughing, wide-eyed, as Susan flailed, shrieking, "This is assault." "You're done, Jack." I stepped closer, hose still in hand. "You hit my kid, on my property, in front of me. You call that assault? You don't know the meaning of the word." She scrambled up, dripping green, her face a mix of rage and humiliation. "I'll ruin you," she spat. "You and your ugly little shack." I smiled, cold as the lake at dawn. "Move fast, Susan, because I'm coming for everything you think you own." She limped off, still yelling, and I knelt by Tommy, his eyes still wide. "You okay, bud?" He nodded, a faint grin breaking through. "That was kinda epic." I shook my head, glancing toward the HOA office down the road. That was just the start. By noon, her retaliation hit like a storm. An HOA-branded SUV rolled up, 2 security guards stepping out like they were starring in a bad cop show. "Sir," the taller one said, "we've got a report of you assaulting Ms. Miller with industrial equipment." I didn't blink. "Want to see my security footage of her hitting my son?" They hesitated, exchanged glances, and left without writing a ticket. But Susan wasn't done. That night, an email blast went out to every resident in Pineview Estates, her words dripping with venom. "A new resident attacked me today, endangering our community's peace. Enforcement is coming. Stay vigilant." She signed it like it was a love letter. Susan Miller, HOA president. The next morning, the harassment ramped up, an orange violation cone in my driveway, a $200 fine for unauthorized parking when I hadn't had a guest in weeks. My mailbox was taped with a notice, "Non-compliant structure setback. Services suspended. Trash pickup stopped." My sprinklers mysteriously broke. Every time I looked out my window, there was Susan, across the street, snapping photos of my yard, my shutters, even my damn mailbox, her clipboard her constant companion. Tommy whispered, "Dad, she's stalking us." I didn't answer, just walked to the garage, pulled open a drawer, and grabbed a leather folder I hadn't touched in years. "She picked the wrong fight," I said, more to myself than him. See, I wasn't just some guy with a paintbrush. I spent years in corporate mergers, dismantling bad players with paper and strategy. Susan thought she was untouchable. She was about to learn how wrong she was. That night, a knock at the door, sharp, nervous, not the kind of knock you ignore. I opened it to find Walter Chun, a wiry old man in his 60s, clutching a folder like it was a bomb. "Mr. Harper," he whispered, "can I come in?" I eyed him. "You with her?" He shook his head, eyes wide. "God, no. She's the reason I'm here." Walter was the former HOA treasurer, a retired accountant who lived 2 streets over. He sat at my kitchen table, glancing over his shoulder like Susan might burst through the wall. "I've seen what she's doing to you and your boy," he said. "I can't stay quiet anymore." He slid the folder over bank statements, invoices, emails, all pointing to one thing. Susan's private company, SM Ventures, had been siphoning HOA funds for years. $50,000 for landscaping, that was just a patch of dirt. $30,000 for consulting, that never happened. "She's been robbing us blind," Walter said, voice shaking. "The last guy who spoke up? She drove him out of town." I flipped through the pages, my pulse hammering. "You know what you're giving me here?" He nodded. "The keys to her downfall." I looked at Tommy, who'd wandered in, his shoulders still bruised from her shove. "This," I told him, holding up the folder, "is how we end her." By morning, I'd made copies, stashed one in a safe, uploaded another to a secure drive, and hand-delivered the rest to a handful of neighbors I trusted. By evening, whispers were spreading, and Susan Feldage called an emergency HOA meeting, thinking she could spin the story, keep her crown. She didn't know I was coming with an army. The clubhouse was packed, tension thick as fog. Susan stood at the front, her smile fake as her community-first speeches, her fingers twitching around her clipboard. "Nice of you to show up, Jack," she sneered as I walked in, 30 neighbors at my back. I didn't smile, just held up my folder. "Thought I'd bring some reading material. Susan, you forgot to mention a few things last meeting." I laid it out: fraud, forged invoices, her shell company, every dirty dollar she'd stolen. The room buzzed, murmurs turning to gasps. "You pay dues to keep this place running," I said, "but she's been pocketing it, using it to bully anyone who dares think for themselves." Susan slammed her clipboard down. "This is slander. You're a thug with a grudge." I stepped closer, voice steady. "You hit my kid. You lied to these people. You don't run a community, you run a scam." The room erupted: claps, shouts, neighbors standing up, some for the first time in years. Walter was in the back, arms crossed, his quiet nod louder than any cheer. Susan's face cracked, her voice shrill. "You're all being manipulated." But no one was listening anymore. The board suspended her on the spot, pending a full audit. I walked out into the night, Tommy beside me, his eyes bright with something new hope. "Is it over, Dad?" he asked. I shook my head. "Not yet, but she's on the ropes." The next morning, a sheriff's cruiser rolled up, tires crunching on the gravel. Susan's car was parked at the HOA office, but she hadn't shown her face since the meeting. Rumors flew she was lawyering up, maybe even skipping town. But I knew better. Susan didn't run, she fought dirty. The deputy stepped out, nodded to me, and headed inside. Then came the yelling, her voice sharp and desperate. "You can't do this. I built this place." They marched her out in cuffs, her hair a mess, her composure gone, still screaming about lawsuits and revenge. I stepped forward, calm as the lake behind me. "You hurt my son, Susan. You broke trust. You thought fear could outlast respect. You were wrong." She spat at the ground as they shoved her into the cruiser, neighbors watching, some filming, others just staring, like they couldn't believe it was real. Later, Tommy and I sat on the cabin porch, sipping lemonade, the lake sparkling under the afternoon sun. The cabin was done, forest green and glowing, just like Sarah wanted. "Is it really over now?" Tommy asked, his voice soft. I nodded. "Yeah, kid. It's ours again." Weeks later, the HOA was rebuilt: new board, new rules, no more clipboards weaponized against neighbors. Kids laughed by the lake again, their voices carrying over the water. A woman approached one morning as I touched up the dock sign, her smile shy but warm. "I'm new here," she said. "Heard what you did. Thank you for giving us a chance to start fresh." I just nodded, because what else do you say when you've fought for something bigger than yourself? This wasn't about paint, or even Susan, not realize it was about holding on to what matters, about standing up when someone tries to take your peace, your family, your home. Susan thought her rules, her clipboard, her fake smile gave her power, but real strength? That's a father painting a cabin with his son, refusing to let some bully rewrite their story. If you've ever had a Susan in your life, someone who pushed you, twisted the rules, made you feel small, drop a comment. Tell me about it. What was your breaking point, your moment of no more? Hit that like button, subscribe, ring the bell, because this isn't just my story, it's for anyone who's ever had to rise instead of fold. Let's build something real, one story at a time.